This video describes an idea for a game app that promotes the discovery and appreciation of jazz. A game app for jazz fans. A lot would have to happen for it to get off the ground. Most importantly, the blessing and participation of a certain major corporation. I'm not a jazz expert, and I'm not an app developer. I'm just a jazz fan with an idea. And after a lot of research and a lot of listening, this is what that idea looks like. Thanks for checking it out. The Jazz app is part educational and part cognitive training, with a bit of competition if you want. It develops your musical knowledge of jazz pioneers, jazz icons, and jazz standards by testing your ability to listen and to identify. Starting with music by ragtime players from the late 19th century and ending with recordings by today's living legends of jazz, the Jazz app takes you through a series of music recognition challenges called Jazz Jobs or JJs. Jazz jobs are about listening to jazz tracks for a set number of times and for a set amount of time, then identifying those tracks by musician, lyricist, track title, album title, and/or date of release, depending on the JJ. Most of the time, you can listen to the tracks and get track information more than once before taking a multiple choice test. And most of the time, you have more than one chance to pass the test. But how many chances you have, how many times you can listen before testing, and how many seconds the tracks play depends on the JJ. The Jazz app features 432 different tracks performed by 82 different artists. There are 107 jazz jobs, and I'll describe just a few. The selected tracks are specific recordings on specific albums, and by design, they're all available on iTunes. To streamline the slideshow, I don't always include the album details. If you fail a jazz job, you gotta back up and redo the previous job before moving forward. And depending on the JJ, sometimes failing means you gotta start over. The goal of the Jazz app is to advance through 5 stages that get harder as you go along. The stages are named Explorer, Fan, Certified Cool, Connoisseur, and PhD. Here's a list of the 82 musicians under the stages where they first appear in the app. The musicians in the PhD stage are living legends who would be front and center in today's version of Art Kane's photograph Harlem 1958, or better known as A Great Day in Harlem. The copyright holder of Mr. Kane's wildly famous photo refused to let it be used for this project. But here's the site where you can see it interactively in all its glory. And glorious it is. 13 of the musicians featured in the app are immortalized in the photo, including 2 of the PhD musicians, who appear in the app from oldest to youngest. Herbie Hancock is the very last because he happens to be the youngest. I don't think there's a younger living legend, but like everything else about this project, I'm open to corrections from folks who know far better than me. Each stage of the app has 3 grade levels, named after notable folks who are living, no longer living, or fictional. Under the Explorer stage, the 3 grades are Sacagawea, a Native American guide and interpreter crucial to Lewis and Clark's exploration of the Louisiana Territory; Matthew Henson, the African American explorer who was the first man to reach the North Pole on Robert Peary's 1909 expedition; and Tenzing Norgay, a Nepali Indian Sherpa mountaineer who first reached the summit of Mount Everest with Edmund Hillary in 1953. Here are the grades under the other stages. I think these folks are good matches for the stages. I won't explain them all, but here's a few more. Leon Vitali is an actor who gave up his career and dedicated his life to be Stanley Kubrick's personal assistant. To this day, he's the primary caretaker of Kubrick's film library. Lisbeth Salander is the central character in a series of novels written by Swedish author Stieg Larsson. She's a world-class computer hacker who uses her skills to fight misogyny and corruption, and she gained international attention after her portrayal by the actor Noomi Rapace in the 2009 film The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Elvis Mitchell is a well-known film critic and the longtime host of The Treatment, a very popular radio program on 89.9 KCRW. And Jiro Ono is considered to be the best sushi chef in the world. His exacting standards were profiled in the 2011 documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Under each grade level, there are 4 steps, named after the notes of the dominant 7th chord in the key of C. That's C, E flat, G, and B flat. It's an important jazz chord, but here the notes are only used as markers to help organize the jazz jobs. There can be up to 6 jazz jobs under each step note. Under the Obama grade, there's 1 JJ under step notes C, E flat, and G, and 3 JJs under step note B flat. The stages, grades, step notes, and JJs mean that if someone asked you how far you've gotten in the app, you might say Certified Cool Obama, B flat JJ1, or just Obama B flat JJ1. Here's how the music fits into the Obama jazz jobs. The musician under step note C is Coleman Hawkins, and the tracks are Sophisticated Lady, Loverman, Ornithology, Body and Soul, Stardust, and How High the Moon. The jazz job is to listen to all the tracks together for 60 seconds each, with the titles provided, then listen to them one at a time for 15 seconds each, and identify the track titles by multiple choice. You can listen to the tracks together in random order up to 3 times before taking the test, and you can take the test twice. But once you start testing, you can't go back to 60-second listening. And if you don't pass after 2 tries, you gotta back up to the JJ before this one. Here's how a few of the tracks might sound during the test. Lester Young is the artist under Obama E-flat. The tracks are Exercise and Swing, 3 Little Words, DB Blues, These Foolish Things Remind Me of You, Stardust, and How High the Moon. The jazz job is the same as for Coleman Hawkins. Charlie Parker is under Obama step note G with these tracks. The JJ is the same as before, but there are 8 tracks instead of 6, and you get an extra chance to pass the test. Obama B-flat focuses on John Coltrane, and it also has 8 tracks. But this time there are 3 jazz jobs. JJ1 is like the last 3, and if you fail, you go back to the previous job. JJ2 and JJ3 use combinations of previously played tracks by all 4 of the saxophone greats. Obama B-flat JJ2 is about telling the difference between versions of the same title performed by 2 or more of the saxophonists. Versions of Body and Soul Stardust, How High the Moon, Ornithology, and Loverman are played in random order, and for each track, you have to decide whether you're hearing Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, or John Coltrane. And if you fail, you gotta start again from the first Obama Jazz Job. So, for example, you have to identify who's playing these three versions of Stardust. Or between these two versions of Billy's Bounce. Instrumentalists don't get all the spotlight in the app. Vocalists are included, and in some of the jazz jobs, you have to tell them apart and match the songs to the lyricist who wrote them. For example, under Certified Cool Lisbeth Salander, you need to know, or remember, that Billy Strayhorn wrote Lush Life, and you have to identify who's singing these four versions of the same phrase from that song.
To get the feel of life from jazz and cocktails.
To get the feel of life in jazz and cocktails.
To get the feel of life from jazz and cocktails.
To get the feel of life from jazz and cocktails.
Fan, Leon Vitali, Step Note C, features what could be only the 5 tracks recorded by Bessie Smith that were also recorded by one or more of the big 3 lady singers. That's Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, and Sarah Vaughan. There's a jazz job for each of these 5 tracks, with only 1 or 2 chances to pass the tests. These are the tracks.
Baby, won't you please come home? 'Cause your mama's all alone. I have tried in vain, never no more to call your name when oh, I hate to see that evening sun go down. Way down. I hate to see that evening sun go down. There ain't nothing I can do or nothing I can say that folks don't criticize me, but I'm going to do just as I want to anyway, and don't care just what people say. I don't mind being in jail, but I gotta stay there so long. I don't mind being in jail, but I gotta stay there so long. Every friend I've had done shook hands and gone. But it's hard to love someone when that someone don't love you. I'm so disgusted, heartbroken too. I've got those downhearted blues.
Of course, jazz jobs at the beginning of the app are the easiest. The first one, Explore Sacagawea CJJ1, has 3 tracks composed by Scott Joplin: Maple Leaf Rag, Picture of Her Face, and Solace. Here's a bit of the way they would sound. After listening to each track for 60 seconds each, you have 3 chances to match the titles by multiple choice. That's pretty easy. But by now you may be thinking that all the jazz jobs would be easy if you could get help from a friend or from a music recognition app like Shazam. Well, this may be true. To get the most out of the app, players will be encouraged to do the JJs on their own, without help of any kind. But all game apps lead to frustration, that can overcome the best intentions. Some folks will take shortcuts, but they'll probably still learn something. If a player is interested and motivated enough to cheat, the app has still done its job. It promoted jazz appreciation. On the other hand, there's no way a cheater can become a jazz app connoisseur or end up with a jazz app PhD. If you want to get past the first grade of the connoisseur stage, you got to do it under the supervision of a jazz apptician. I'll explain what that is in a bit. First, let's take a look at some jazz jobs at the connoisseur stage. Elvis Mitchell, Step Note C, has 4 jazz jobs focusing on the violinist Stuff Smith, Joe Venuti, and Stefan Grappelli. There are 5 tracks for each artist, and 4 of them are the same. Each violinist has a JJ just for his 5 tracks. You can listen to them together up to 3 times for 45 seconds each. Then listen to 10-second clips from 3 of the 5 tracks and identify them by multiple choice. Here's a sample of Stuff Smith's tracks. The 4th jazz job under Elvis Mitchell, Step Note C, combines the 4 common tracks that the violinists had in their separate JJs into 8 different sets of 4. Each set plays for 60 seconds, that's 15 seconds per track. The job is to plug in the correct musician's initials next to each track as they're played. And you have 3 chances to get all the sets correct. One of the sets might sound like this. This JJ is the last one you can do on your own. After this, you gotta make an appointment to see a jazz aptician. A jazz aptician is a retired or active professional jazz musician recruited to administer JJ exams to connoisseur and PhD candidates by video conference. For a fee, of course. Here's the basic idea. Once you pass JJ4 under Connoisseur Elvis Mitchell Step Note C, you're automatically added to the queue of folks eligible to test at the connoisseur level. Then whenever you're ready, you select an available test date on the Jazz App website. Rules and materials for the exam are sent to you via mail and email. And on the day of the exam, you have to show and declare to the aptician that no one else is in the room with you. And once the exam begins, to make sure that you're only using your listening and music ID skills, you have to wear blacked out glasses or a blindfold, specially provided by the Jazz App. There's no backing up when you test with an aptician. You just keep going as far as you can or for as long as you want. Pass or fail, your results are emailed to you after the exam along with the correct answers to whatever you got wrong. There are two parts to the connoisseur and PhD exams. In part 1 of the connoisseur exam, you have to show what you know from the earlier stages. You have to pass all the JJs under the Explorer stage, pass all the JJs under the Fan stage, and then pass 5 certified cool JJs selected by the jazz aptician. Then in part 2, you have to pass the remaining JJs under the connoisseur stage. If you pass the connoisseur exam, you're added to the queue of folks eligible to take the PhD exam. In part 1 of the PhD exam, you have to pass all the JJs under Explorer, Fan, and Certified Cool, plus 10 connoisseur JJs selected by the jazz aptician. Then in part 2, you need to pass all the PhD JJs. For the PhD jazz jobs, you have to identify music by track title, album title, and the date the album was released. The names of the musicians and the release dates on your exam are given to you in advance with your eligibility notification. Here are Ahmad Jamal's tracks under PhD Juro Ono B-flat. So the release dates you'd be given in advance for Jamal's tracks would be 1955, 68, 72, 87, 94, 2008, and 2019. And of course, no two candidates would ever be tested with the same release dates. There's just one jazz job for each of the PhD musicians, and they're all the same. The aptician tells you the musician's name and plays each track for 60 seconds. After each track plays, you have to state the title, album, and release date within 90 seconds, including a 30-second replay if you ask for one. And if you need to call a friend, as they say, you can ask the aptician for one or two of the 3 answers, but if you do, you lower your chances of passing. There are 252 questions in Part 2 of the PhD exam, 84 in each of the 3 grades. You have to get 60 correct in each grade for a total of at least 180 to pass. Part 2 of the connoisseur exam has 170 questions, and you need 120 to pass. A final score for either exam is recorded as the highest grade passed, together with the total number of correct answers. Annie Leibovitz 90 could be your score if you didn't pass all the grades in the connoisseur exam, or if you passed all the grades, your score could be connoisseur 157. In the PhD exam, your score could be Alice Ball 153 if you didn't graduate, or PhD 223 if you did. Whether or not you pass the exams, you can choose to have your score posted and ranked online, like the way chess players are ranked, and you could do it with your real name or whatever you want to call yourself. This is how the rankings might look. So again, the jazz jobs are about listening and identifying. Except for one. To complete the last JJ under fan Francis Podra, you need to know who Podra was, the book that he's famous for writing, and 2 major events that he details in the book. Any serious jazz fan should know something about Podra's epic jazz memoir. And of course there are libraries and college courses and tons of media dedicated to the study of jazz and jazz creators. The Jazz app isn't trying to compete with all that. It's just about listening very carefully. So that's the idea. I know there's a lot of basic questions like who's going to make this thing and who's going to pay for it, who's going to own it, and who's going to benefit, who's going to profit. I think I have answers that aren't too crazy. Thanks for taking the time to check out the Jazz app.